Super excited to be here today. I am a longtime comic book fan, and I'm glad you guys asked me to do this one. So I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to jump right into it and let you guys see kind of my workflow. So I'm using Painter right now, but to do this character that I created, I used a program called ZBrush and sculpted out this guy. I already had a sculpture which I had made once before, and I kind of repurposed him by changing the look of him, making a hood, making a jacket, and I knew I wanted this guy to be kind of an anti-hero. So he's a good guy, but he's kind of one of these people that looks like they could exist in real life. All right, so if you can see my screen here, I have a few different angles of the character that I made in ZBrush, and that provided the reference for lighting on this guy. And then the next step was to take him and do a few color comps. So
Mike,
yep.
I just have a question about this character. What inspired you to create this particular? Do you consider him, is he a superhero or a villain?
He's a good guy, actually. And just a quick little backstory on him that it took me several minutes to come up with this is it's probably the most creative backstory of all time. When he was little, his parents were shot. I don't know if you guys have ever heard anything like this before, but they had a lot of money, and so he grew up and turned into this guy. By night, he's a crime fighter. So I trademarked that idea, and so don't try to steal it.
All right.
No, I haven't really thought too much about it yet. I know he's a good guy, but I didn't want him to look like a cliche good guy. So if you'll see on the left-hand side, I mocked up the kind of quote-unquote, super America guy colors, and I really wasn't feeling that too much. So I went with the darker, more moody colors, and I really was digging the look of the guy on the right. So that's what I'm going to be painting today for you guys.
Awesome. We can't wait.
All right, so then let's jump into it. All right, so with this in mind, I had a look for him, and I went ahead and prepared a sketch that I will be working on right here. So that's the angle. And just did a blue line. This is how I normally would approach this for a client. If Marvel or DC or somebody asked me to do something, I just sketch out a blue line and do my line over top of it with the more detail. One of the questions I get asked a lot on YouTube is, why don't you draw your lines during the webinar? And the reason for that is I only have like 45 minutes to paint, and I'm not one of those really fast painters, so that is why. But I do draw these, I assure you guys. So,
I already have a couple questions.
Just have a black background. Sure.
Do you happen to know Ron McLeroy? I think that's how his name is said, but he wants to know if you reference your own mustache when painting your characters.
I have heavily. Yeah, no, I don't reference my own mustache. That's the same.
I had to throw that one out there.
Thank you. No, I know Ron. All right, so same deal as always. Always start off by getting my brush tracking down. So pull that up, get a color, and just block in some mood lighting here in the background really quickly. And one of the things I usually do is set my pencil color to be contrasty with the background. So I'm going to make it light here and turn on preserve transparency and fill it. Yeah, and then just turn down the opacity here so I can see what I'm doing. And start blazing through some of these colors.
So I've got a good question asking, why do you prefer Painter over Photoshop?
Oh, it's the same answer I always give. It's the brushes. They're very natural to me, and one of the things I really go for with my work is for it to have a traditional look. So even though you can get, you can get a look like that in Photoshop, like with no work at all because the brushes are doing it all, I do it with Painter more often than not, which is all the time actually.
Nice. So you can just hop into Painter and grab a brush and it works the way that you like it to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you doing a lot of superhero projects nowadays?
I have been doing a lot in the past few years actually. Just wrapped up a 2-year job with Mattel doing the DC Infinite Earth line of figures. So that was actually about 24 pieces of individual art that was used for the box design. And
Wow.
yeah, there's a lot of characters, but that was a great job. So.
And you have all of that work on your website at miketartworks.com, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So you guys can go there and see these fabulous characters. They're pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Some people are asking if you can just bump up the volume a little bit. I know you're concentrating on your...
Oh, yeah. I don't know why.
That actually, it sounds better already.
Is it? I just moved the mic closer to me.
Okay, great.
It's in my way now, actually.
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry about that. Is it in the way of your tablet, or are you using a Cintiq or an Intuos Pro?
Yeah, I'm on a Cintiq.
Cintiq?
Yeah, so if my arm knocks down the microwave, that's the reason why.
Okay.
It's all up in
Tony is wondering if you can actually let us know what versions of Painter have been among your favorites.
Everything after 9 has been my favorite. That's when, I believe it was 9, it was either 8 or 9, where you guys changed the interface to be a lot more like Photoshop. So I learned using Photoshop and spent several years with that. So really, the only thing that was keeping me from using Painter was taking the time to learn a new interface. So I think 9 is... I know that's Tony's favorite. That's the Leonard.
Yes, yes it is.
He reminds me all the time that is his favorite version. But I really like 13.
So there are some questions coming in regards of, as far as lighting this scene, are you basing that on your ZBrush sculpt, or do you formulate that once you get here into Painter?
No, that's based on my ZBrush sculpt. So what I did was I did a couple of renders and kind of took those and kit bashed them together, Frankensteined the things that I liked to get the look that I wanted, and that's what I base my piece on.
And I know I've seen you use a lot of photo references also.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything like that for this project, or was it solely the sculpt?
Yeah, it was all sculpt for this one, which is another reason why, like, I just started using ZBrush almost a year ago, and the whole reason that I picked that up was I wanted to be able to have another avenue for getting reference. So yeah, that it gave me everything I needed in order to kind of dynamically light this thing, pose it, get it the way I want, where normally I would set up a tripod and either take pictures of myself and my family, or use something like DAZ or Painter. DAZ or Poser to get that reference, and a ton of additional photo reference from like online.
Julia's wondering where you usually get your inspiration from.
All over. I mean, really, I'll hop on Pinterest lately, which is my best friend slash enemy, because I get on there and I might be looking for one thing and end up spending the entire day just looking at awesome pictures and, you know, sculpts and all kinds of other stuff. So online primarily is where I get all of my inspiration. But I mean, it could be anything from video games to movies. This one, the whole reason that I decided to do this guy was I took my kids to see Spider-Man, and you know, Jamie Foxx is wearing the hoodie. I was like, you know, I've never done anything with a hoodie before, with a superhero. Let me try this. Oh man, okay. Don't do what I just did, which is paint on the line layer. It's not a good thing, but I'm going to keep going.
You can work it out.
Yeah.
Janet is wondering if you would recommend Painter Lite for a beginner or, you know, an aspiring artist that can't afford Painter X3.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got, you know, it's got a limited number of brushes, but the thing about it is I don't use you know, I use a fraction of the brushes that are in Painter because there's just so many of them. So to get your feet wet, I would definitely say try out Painter Lite, or just download the demo of Painter and kind of play with it, see if you are liking it, and then get it when you can.
And for those of you that haven't seen it, our Painter Lite marketing video features Mike Thompson. It's a great video. I love that. And he was the inspiration for all of the students there. Now, Andy has a question, and this is a new term to me. Do you ever photo bash textures into your work?
I have done it for the Hasbro line. So when I was doing G.I. Joe characters, they needed the outfits to have, like, say, the ripstop nylon texture on the tack gear, and so rather than, you know, killing myself trying to paint that, what I would do is go and paint everything flat, get all of my lighting and you know, everything pretty much the way that I want it, and then take some textures that were grayscale images and kind of kit bash them on top, just using different composite methods. So the short answer is yes. I don't do it that much anymore, just because I really have gotten into having a really natural look, and you know, unless a client specifically asks for it, I would rather just approximate the texture with paint.
Is that a common term, photo bashing?
I think it is more on the CG side.
Oh, okay. Okay. I have a lot to learn then. And along the lines of 3D, Susan is wondering, I know you mentioned Poser and you use ZBrush. Are there any other 3D programs that you use or would recommend that people try out?
Not that I use. There's a lot of, excuse me, there's a lot of really good 3D apps, but I refuse to use them because I don't want to mess with the Z-axis. I mean, if you're willing to delve really deeply into 3D, there's all kinds of stuff like Maya and, you know, apps like that, but that's not really my thing.
Gary is wondering if you ever use watercolor media.
In real life or in Painter?
Why not both?
Because I am terrible at both. I learned in high school that I was not really a watercolor guy. I don't have the patience for it, you know. It just, you got to build up colors and wait for them to dry and then build them again, and I don't have that time, you know. But people who can do it, I have all the respect for them.
Digital Dust, I don't have the real name, but they're wondering which Cintiq model you're using.
The 22 HD Touch.
Okay, so that's their, that's the latest and greatest. Do you prefer that over any of the other Cintiq models?
I played around with the 24. It has a really big footprint, which I don't think would really fit my desk well. But yeah, the 22 is just the right size, and I got one of those Ergotron arms that allows me to swivel it all over the place, which is fantastic. So this is my favorite thing of all time right now.
Just so you know, you have people from all over the world on here, because I have Janet is saying hi from the UK, and Juan says he follows you from Colombia, where your work is very big.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you. Hello.
Yeah. It's great.
That is awesome.
And Philip is wondering what your favorite brush sets and painter are, depending upon the style that you're working on.
I have all of my favorites kind of set up in my palette here. So the ones that I go to the most are the pastel brush, the NT scratch board, which is kind of like my little iteration of the scratch board that comes in the box, and the Just Add Water. I use those for everything. But I'm trying to discipline myself so that I can use more, like open up other avenues and use other brushes.
There are so many questions coming in. I'm trying to keep up here. I love it, you guys. You're a very interactive group. James is wondering, what's the best way to get exposure or to work your way into a position and build your client base? Since you have so many high-profile clients, we're curious.
Sure. I think it's getting your work out there in front of people. So, you know, that's sometimes easier said than done. I can just tell you how I did it, which was started off by doing spot ads for magazines. And I just took a trip to New York one day and hit up a lot of the different publishers over there with my portfolio, and asked if they needed anything, and if you need me, give me a call. And I started to eventually start getting calls from magazines like King and Double XL, Vibe magazine, that kind of stuff. The urban, the urban mags, because at the time I was doing hip hop artists, and that got my work in front of people. So it's really just getting out there however you can. And it took a long time to really start to get the AAA clients, but once you get one really good one, then they kind of start finding you. So I think I lucked into doing a Coke commercial a few years back, and people saw it, and that turned into getting other big guys.
So we've got a fellow painter master on here, Skip Allen. Although I think now he's left, but he was saying, hey Mike, watercolor and painter is easy. Maybe he's willing to give you some tips.
Yeah, Skip is the watercolor master.
Yeah. He definitely is. And he was also asking about the arm that you mentioned with the Cintiq. He's wondering where you have it attached. Is it on the desk or the wall?
It is. It's on the desk, on the left-hand side of my desk. I did a video a while back. I'll maybe throw the link on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that video. If you want to do that, I can share it with everybody also.
Excellent. Yeah, but it changed my life because I was doing so much work for a period of time for this one client that I was starting to blow out my wrist, and it was getting to be about time where I would have to go see a doctor about maybe getting surgery. So that's why I initially got the Cintiq, and moving it around has really been able to help me. I don't even notice my hand anymore.
Now, Andy is wondering, how often do you choose to color pick over color mix? So using the artist's mixer pad.
I mean, you know, it's funny. I never, let's see, the mixer pad. You know, I just wasn't thinking about it this time. Normally I use the mixer pad. I think I'm so stressed about getting a substantial amount of painting done here that I just forgot to pull it up. But normally that is the way that I go.
Yeah, I know it must be very challenging to address all these questions and paint at the same time.
Well, I'm just not a fast painter, so this type of a job would normally take me at least a day, you know. I'm hoping that I get something that's not it's not too shabby here, but yeah, I usually like to take my time and cook it for a while.
Well, I think it's looking good.
Thank you. So like this part right here is just the block-in stage anyway. All the detailing would come later, but hopefully I'll be able to get a little bit of detailing done. Oh my goodness, I just started drawing on painting on the drawing level again. Stop doing that.
Daniel is wondering if you're willing to post your workspace on your blog or your website.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have the one on the Corel site, but that's for the old Painter 12.
Yeah.
We've been meaning to get the new one up for 13, so definitely let's get that taken care of.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that'll help promote when you have the opportunity to do that. And Andy is saying that he's heard that you're learning Blender sculpting. And do you think it will become your preference over ZBrush?
Oh, man. I can't say enough good stuff about Blender. No, I don't use Blender. I'm a ZBrush guy. You sure that's not a Jerry question?
Nope.
Okay.
Definitely Andy. So do you think that it's better, do you take advantage of the web to expose yourself, or is there still value in trying to meet people face to face and show your portfolio? Or a combo of both, I guess.
Yeah, it's both, but you know what? I've really been kind of a in-studio guy for a number of years now. I used to go out and try to meet people face-to-face as much as possible. And I do at trade shows. But you really don't even need to these days. It's really kind of easy to get your stuff on all of the great sites that are available and kind of socially network yourself into, you know, out of obscurity, rather.
James is going down memory lane, and he says he remembers the Jay-Z you did for Vibe back when he turned 40.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if you mentioned this already, but didn't you do some work for the new Marvel film, Guardians of the Galaxy?
I did, yeah.
Did.
That I can finally talk about it, but I can't show anything until after the film comes out. myself and two other really amazing comic artists, Tyler Walpole and Scott Johnson, did work for that, and it's like that was amazing. I met with Marvel while I was at the New York Comic Con with you guys, and I was just kind of waiting for them to call me back, and they did for that. And I was really fortunate enough to get to do a little something for them. So yeah, I'm excited.
There are a ton of 3D questions coming in here. So Robert says, now that you're making your own 3D images, will you start doing paint overs on the actual 3D models that you make? I mean, I'm not going to do them as illustrations, but I think that you kind of have to. Most of the stuff that gets put on the, on the showcase sites have some amount of paint over done to them. But mainly, I mean, like I said, the main reason that I learned ZBrush was to get reference for 2D stuff. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah. Let me scroll down here and see. Rob, just let us know if that answered your question. Ooh, this is a good one from Gary. He's wondering if you can make custom brushes like you can in Photoshop.
Yeah, you can. The thing about it is, it's I don't know if anybody out there has played a game called Borderlands, but I'm a video game nut too. And I think the big thing about that game was you could have a billion guns. Like it was some infinite amount of guns. And that's kind of the way I see Painter, is there's so many brushes that it blows your mind. I don't know that you really even need to make a, you need to make your own brushes as opposed to just modifying what's in here. But yeah, it can be done, definitely. What I was doing more when I was with Hasbro was making custom papers, because that's how I was able to get a lot of the texturing for those Joe characters.
Donnie's wondering if you ever use pastel medium in any of your work.
Not really. I have some pastel brushes. I like the grainy look that it gives. More for like effect stuff. So if I want to have, glow patterns and stuff like that, I'll use it to have a nice irregular edge.
But just so you know, Donnie, we do have a category of brushes, pastel media, that you can explore. So now we're wondering, do you recommend any particular sites for exposing your work? I know you have your own website and blog and all that, but is there anywhere else that you post your work?
Sure. I'm a big fan of CG Society, and like Imgur is good. Imgur, I can never pronounce that correctly. There's just a lot of stuff to choose from. I should have prepared. I can't really think of it. I know there's a bunch that I'm just not able to pull to mind right now.
Not a big deal. We can always do a social post later if you want to.
Okay, absolutely.
Ron's wondering, and I've seen some of your photo references, but what type of photo references, 3D models or clothing references do you use?
It's really what kind of suits the job at the time. So, give you an example. When I was doing the G.I. Joe stuff, I needed a lot of, like I said, tactical gear. So I would go onto sites that had all kinds of pictures of flak jackets and the belts and all that good stuff. that's really what I'm pulling from. If anybody wants to see pretty much like my taste and reference, they can go to my Pinterest page, which is Mike T Artworks, and see some of the stuff that I've got on there. That's a pretty good gauge of what I'm using for ref.
Okay, great. I sent that out to everybody in the question window, so they have a record of it.
Cool.
Now, do you always use black as a starting color on your paintings?
Now, only for stuff I want to be like super moody. So this one, I know that there's going to be some, like I said, some effects going on, glowing and things of that nature. So I wanted to start from a nice dark background so that the lights pop off. Just want it to be as contrasty as possible.
Andy has a request for you. He is very curious to see some of your work before you turned pro.
Okay. I can do that.
I don't know if you could, so you don't currently have it posted anywhere?
I think on my Facebook page I have a couple of airbrush pieces I did of some rappers back when I was in high school. So that's, I'll show you where I came from. And that's pretty much how, airbrush was the first real foray into color for me. I used to do a lot of drawing but didn't mess with color. Then I got into airbrush and eventually acrylics on cold press board, and that's kind of what gives me my style now. That's the style that I'm trying to go back to with digital.
What kind of official education background do you have for illustration?
I graduated from University of Maryland, College Park, and had a design major, or degree rather. But I didn't, it's funny, I mean, I haven't completely utilized that. You know, I went back to painting, stayed in school.
So you went back to your passion.
Yeah. I had a illustration instructor at University of Maryland that his name was James Yang, and it's funny because I stayed in contact with him after school, and he ended up, his agent became my agent later on. So that was pretty interesting.
Do you, now that we know a little more about your background, do you have any suggestions for people that are new to digital art or trying to develop their skills? How do you suggest that they try to learn Painter and digital art in general?
There's so many really great tutorials that you can see online, both free and paid. But really, I would just say go to YouTube and type in whatever you're trying to learn, and there'll be a million things you can just sit there and spend the day looking at. That's pretty much the approach I took with ZBrush, and I think part of the reason why I learned it as quickly as I did is just grabbing books by people and looking at tutorials, buying DVDs, and that kind of thing. Also, I hang out in the ZBrush Hangout, which, if you can find communities of like-minded people, that's the best thing, because any question you have can be instantly answered.
That's a great suggestion. Do you always work with multiple layers, and is there a point when there are too many layers? Do you try and keep a minimal number?
I do. What I'll do normally is work on a base layer underneath with my pencils and block in, which is pretty much what I'm doing now. Once that's done and I'm happy with the forms, I'll go and create a new layer on top of that on top of the pencils and start to paint in details and start to flatten those. I don't like to have a whole lot of layers at any given time. Even though I finally have, I mean, and that kind of came from a necessity back when I had a machine that couldn't handle it. Now I do, but I still am in that conservation mode. The only reason I kind of jumped the gun here is I painted on my pencil layer, so I got to improvise.
Adrian is mentioning that he sees a lot of artists flipping the canvas horizontally, and he's wondering if there's an advantage to flipping it vertically, but I think it's really more about the flexibility of the canvas rotation tool so that you can adjust it based on the feature that you're working on. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
So you mean doing things like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter which way you flip it. The whole reason that I do it and other artists do it is just to get a fresh set of eyes. It's very easy to get locked into thinking your proportion and your shading and everything is right, and just stepping away from the piece or flipping it upside down, even rotating it horizontally where you mirror the image is a really good way to get a fresh set of eyes and see your mistakes.
Now, looking at the eyes on your character, I can see, they kind of have that glowy effect, and Eileen is wondering if you ever work with neon type effects.
Like the FX glow? Is that?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. I have that in my everyday palette. I usually save special effects for last, so I'm only kind of blocking in this stuff now because I have a really limited amount of time. But normally what I would do is paint this guy completely, just like he's wearing just face paint. And once that's done, I'll go in and actually set off the nice glowy bits.
Gary is wondering if there are any features that you'd like to see integrated in the future release in Painter.
Well, I wanted 64-bit. I know that that's coming for Mac. That was my big one. Everything else, I mean, the transform tools are getting better and better, so that's probably the only other thing I can mention. I know with my workflow, whenever I run into things that that might be handled a little more conveniently somewhere else, I'll just jump over to a different app, work on it, come back, and it's really seamless.
There is another question about the Cintiq, and I don't know how often you use the touch feature, but how do you feel about that touch capability with Painter?
I use it a lot more than I thought I would. Initially I got the touch because this was the item that was in stock. I wanted just the regular 22. I ended up getting the touch and was like, all right, well, I can always turn it off if I don't like it. But I use it all the time. On the Cintiq, a lot more than when I was using it on my Intuos. I had the Intuos 5. And I noticed that when I have my hand on the drawing surface, it makes a lot more sense. So I use it a lot.
Okay. This is a really good question from Mauricio. He's wondering if you always base your work on reference or sometimes do you just create from imagination?
I noticed that I have, even when I do that, I tend to take whatever it is that I've kind of imagined and try to base it in reality somehow, because I'm just one of those realist kind of guys. So also when I try to paint just or draw something just from my head, I find that I get frustrated. because it doesn't look exactly the way I want it to. So I've done it with varying degrees of success, but most of the time I use reference.
Is all of your commercial work digital? Do you do any traditional work at all?
I haven't worked with any in years. So, no. It's pretty much all traditional, or all digital now.
Now, I know I saw a question in here. Andre is wondering if you could give some advice for moving from, I don't know if you establish, your values in black and white first and then you move to color, but he's challenged every time he starts applying color, it damages the work. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, that's just a confidence thing. I think the more that you do it, the more you'll start to know the right decisions to make, and also look at other people's work that you admire with that have good color theory. I still think even though I do pretty much all of my work is very colorful. Color theory is always the one thing that I keep coming back to when I get books and study and everything, because it can only get better, and there are people who really do a fantastic job. I think I do pretty well, but I could definitely, there's room for improvement, I think. So just find people you like and look at their stuff.
Edgar is wondering if you would ever take on an apprentice or a student to mold in your style.
I think he knows the answer to that. If that is the Edgar I think you're talking about.
Edgar Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's currently my student, my art student. I've taken only one, like a Padawan, and he's the guy.
Terrific.
Yeah. Training.
Are you sharing anything in social media about that?
No.
I would just be curious to see how Edgar's work progresses as you work with them and what the experience is like.
We can do that. I'm sure we can set that up. He's a quick study. Like, seriously, a quick study. Too quick.
Do you feel it's important to have an agent to progress your career?
I have worked with an agent and without one. I currently do not have one, and I'm very happy. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the high road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Andy's mentioning that he doesn't know if people realize that Painter can save as PSD. And yes, you can save as a PSD, and you can also open up PSD in Painter so that you can go back and forth.
I save all my work as PSD.
I think the majority of Painter artists do that, because I find that if they're going to send their work to print, they're taking it into Photoshop to do, those final color adjustments and whatnot.
Yep. That's definitely what I do.
Adam's wondering if you've ever tried to change up the brush dab on the scratchboard tool.
Change the dab? No, I haven't.
I think you've customized the brush a little bit. Your own custom.
Are we talking about the profile of the brush?
Yeah, I don't even remember, to be honest, if it's a dab-based profile.
Yeah, no. I mean, I haven't. I'm intrigued, but no.
And Gary is wondering, and I'm so happy we've actually made it through all the questions so far, but he's wondering if there are any clients that you haven't worked with that you would love the chance to work with.
Oh, absolutely. My white whale at the moment is Sideshow Collectibles. I'm a big fan of statues, and I've been trying to reach out to those guys. I think that it would be a nice collaboration, but I'm still kind of waiting to hear back from them. So if anybody knows, anybody at Sideshow, put in a word. That'd be great.
So I guess your entire focus right now is not just superhero villain type projects.
No. I still do work for clients like Nike, and just finished up a job for a movie that's going to be coming out next week. So as much as I love doing superheroes, they're kind of the fun part. The part that pays the bills is the average, the regular product placement type stuff.
I've had quite a few questions asking if we've recorded this session, and yes, we have. And I'm just noticing that we're getting pretty close to the end here. Just to give you a heads up, I know you're painting away. So I will have this edited and posted to our YouTube channel in the very near future, and then I'll remind everybody in social media about that. So did you feel that it was a fairly easy transition going from Photoshop to Painter?
I did. Like I said, when that interface changed around version 9, it became much more easy. But yeah, it was, let's put it this way, I had a job that I had to do, and I think my version of Photoshop, for some reason, died on me. And like I purchased almost every version of Painter up to that point, but I never used it just because I didn't have time to learn the interface. For that particular job, I didn't have anything to do other than use it or miss the deadline. So I did, and that was the turning point. I really haven't stopped using it since then. But yeah, it was pretty painless.
Okay, there's a bunch of questions coming in. Let's see. It all relates to, have you ever worked in environmental concept? They're also asking, do you ever paint landscapes or more iterative-based concept art?
I've done concept stuff for characters. I haven't done any land-based or vehicle type of work. I know people that do that, and I don't know that I could really. I don't think I could do that. It's a little too technical for me for the vehicle anyway. But yeah, I have definitely done concept art for characters. Was that both parts of the question? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you addressed it.
Okay.
This is interesting. Do you happen to remember what your very first painting in Painter was?
It was Wolverine. Every time I learn something, I do Wolverine first. A bunch of Wolverine trick pony. I still have that somewhere.
And I think I actually did skip a question up here. Robert was wondering if you ever thought about 3D printing any of your 3D work, possibly selling it as a statue.
Absolutely. As soon as I do something that's my own, I'll definitely do that.
I know that there's, yeah, that would be really cool. And then there's some new technology out there for actually printing your artwork in 3D. So there's all kinds of exciting technology developments going on now.
Yeah. I definitely want to do that. Like I said, I'm a statue nut, so anytime I can get something that is a custom piece, and be able to put it in my entertainment room. That's a plus.
Dudley is wondering what you would save this as so that you can send it to Flexi Design or VersaWorks to print. Do you have any idea? I'm not familiar with.
Are we talking about the 3D thing that I showed?
I'm not sure. Dudley, if you could just clarify your question for us, we'll try and get you an answer. Do you have a favorite up-and-coming digital artist?
Up and coming?
Mm-hmm.
There's too many for me to even name. I know that I have some that have been doing it for a while that I'm a big fan of. Like Jason Seiler is probably at the top of my list. There's just a lot of guys, and especially if I go to Pinterest, I'll find 20 more before I even log out that I didn't even know existed before I go there. But, I tend to kind of follow the guys that have the more realistic style. But yeah, there's a ton of people killing it right now.
So Gary has actually asked this a couple times, and he's wondering what allowed you to make the connection with Corel. How did we find you?
I found you guys. I hounded you the same way I've been hounding Sideshow. It broke you down one day, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to use that guy. That's the truth.
So do not be afraid, people, to promote yourself to Corel, because it is true. It is, in many cases, that is the way that we come upon artists, because they're doing a really great job of promoting themselves. I try to do my best to take a look at what's happening online, and but as you all know, the job has a way of taking over where I can't spend all of my time browsing online. So I definitely appreciate when people contact us directly. So I don't want to force you to paint all day, Mike. This is looking really great.
Thank you. It's rough still. I tell you what, maybe what I'll do is I'll finish this on my own time and we can post it on the Painter page or something.
Okay, yeah. I could even make it the cover image on the Facebook page if you like.
Cool.
So that people can see how your work progressed.
Excellent. All right. So did we answer all the questions?
There's more coming in right now. Make Mike paint all day. You know what? He'll be painting all day, just not live for you all to see, I'm sure, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true.
And I think we should remind everybody of your Facebook page and your Twitter handle and your Pinterest page and all of that stuff. So today I'll post links to all of those on our Corel Painter Facebook page so that you can follow Mike everywhere.
Thank you.
Ron wants to know if there's anywhere that we can watch you work. Can they just kind of peer through your window?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave it open.
I'm not going to give away where you live.
Okay.
Pardon me. Oh, you know, I did have one more question. What's up with Mike Drops?
Oh, I'm happy that you asked me that. That's it's a YouTube show that I will be I'll be putting on my site on YouTube fairly regularly. I'm gonna try to stick to a once-a-week schedule, but it is going to be a bite-sized chunk of information for each show, and I'm going to have people write in and ask questions about anything they want to know, industry, T-shirts, because I started doing T-shirts, illustration, how to get clients, whatever. Same kind of stuff we did here today. but in a short video format, and that's what Mic Drops is.
Oh, that sounds fabulous.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see that. I did miss one question that Daniel's asked 2 times now. Sorry, Daniel. Do you ever use the new reference image panel in X3?
I haven't yet, but it's on my list of things that I really should have been doing already.
So that is the final question, and I'm going to go ahead and close things down at this time. Thank you so much for this session today. It was wonderful.
Thank you. No, I'm just really happy that everybody could come and join us today, and we had a nice turnout. I'm looking forward to seeing folks on the YouTube channel. Let me know what you want to know. I'll be happy to answer your questions and get it on the show.